In this edition of Southern Newsweek, a prominent astrophotographer says Southland has some of the best dark sky viewing in the world. A group of Queenstown protesters have voiced their opposition to the use of 1080 poison. And an infamous South Dunedin watering hole is to close its doors for the last time after their bar manager's licence has been cancelled. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. A prominent Kiwi astrophotographer says Southland has some of the best dark sky viewing in the world and is backing the push for a dark sky sanctuary for the region. Dr. Stephen Voss joined Venture Southland in a dark skies meeting recently to promote the benefits of preserving the region's night sky.
These photographs on display in Invercargill showcase the best of Southland skies. The exhibition is made up of entries for Venture Southland's Dark Shot competition to show the quality of the skies in the region.
Southland skies, really compared to almost anywhere else in the world, are marvellous because we don't have a lot of light pollution. We're lowly populated, and it's easy to find a spot where it's reasonably dark with a reasonably short drive. In the middle of Auckland or the middle of New York, then you've got no hope and heck of actually seeing what we can see within just a short drive, even a short walk sometimes.
Voss, whose own photographs are featured in the display, joined Venture Southland for a dark skies meeting last night to promote the benefits of preserving dark skies.
There's a lot to be gained, not just for astrophotographers, in terms of preserving our dark skies. So anything we can do to keep the light down and not going up is great from our perspective.
Venture Southland are behind the push for Rakiura to become a dark sky sanctuary and for Southlanders to realise how fortunate they are in regards to their own night sky.
Basically, the intention of it is to showcase the exceptional quality of Southland night skies and raise awareness in the community of just what a special environment we actually live in that we're not always so appreciative of. And I think it's just really becoming aware for people that what we put into the atmosphere does have an effect. There are parts of the world now where people have never seen stars and had that experience. So it's just about, and it's not really about no lighting, it's about how we light and how we direct it and being more aware of what we can do to make it better and have the best of both worlds in a way.
Successful entries for the Dark Shot competition will be displayed on Saturday in the former ASB building and will be accompanied by a star dome to celebrate the Matariki Festival. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
A new plan to relieve pressure on the South Dunedin wastewater system could soon be underway, and council staff say it could lead to a better system down the line.
The Dunedin City Council could soon be diverting wastewater into the Kaikorai stream during heavy rain. Mayor Dave Carl says flooding in general is a long-term problem to solve, but this provides a good fix for a pressing issue.
What was really a wicked problem was the wastewater surcharging and that foul waste going into people's homes, and particularly around the Surrey Street area. It seemed an intractable problem. We know we've got a long-term solution. And when we get the Green Island plant up and the pipe to it, that will be really great.
Wastewater from the Kaikorai Valley catchment area currently goes through the Tahuna treatment plant. If a pipe is about to blow in South Dunedin, a signal will go to the outlet near the Kaikorai stream and it will be diverted there. The output would be a diluted mix of rain and sewage.
We're talking about we're talking about the proportion of sewage being about 1 in 12. So 11 parts rainwater, one part sewage.
However, the council are aware there could be an environmental cost. We're
talking about a trade-off between public health and the environment. We're going to do everything we can to mitigate any damage and ensure that the wastewater we've provided, the wastewater we do discharge to the stream is all screened and as much as possible treated to minimise that damage.
There is a $44 million plan to build a permanent cleaner system, which will be put in place over the next 8 years. In Dunedin, The South Today.
A group of Queenstown protesters have voiced their opposition to the use of 1080 poison. The leader of the group is walking to Parliament. Along the way, he's been sharing his message against aerial drops of the pesticide.
And what can only be described as chemical warfare on all creation. Don't let them get away with it.
Anti-1080 campaigner Alan Gurdon of Greymouth leads a group of about 20 protesters through the streets of Queenstown.
Our government is a terrorist.
He's walking from Bluff to Wellington in protest against 1080 pesticide. He claims people's health is at risk from aerial drops of the poison in New Zealand forests.
I want my children and our children in the community to be able to have children. We want them to have a future. We want them to have native birds and animals that they can enjoy too. We want them to be able to swim in a river. We want them to catch fish out the river without being poisoned from eating them.
But Sue Maturin of Forest and Bird disagrees, saying the risk of human poisoning is extremely low.
The thing is that it's applied in such low concentrations that even if it does get into a stream and you take a drink from it, you'd have to drink 60,000 litres in one sitting, and nobody's going to be doing that. And it's the same with trout. If trout were unlucky enough to eat many mice that were unlucky enough to eat some 1080, you'd have to eat an awful lot of trout. And even then, the risk is extremely low.
She is also keen to point out the many benefits of aerial 1080 drops.
There's just success story after success story with 1080. And up in the Landsborough, where you've got mohua, which is extremely threatened, they were down to 13 or 14 birds. And then after 20 years of aerial 1080 operations, that population's got to 400. And that is repeated for bats, it's repeated for kaka. Kaka in Waitutu are thriving now because of aerial 1080.
When Alan Gurdon reaches Wellington, he intends to present his objections to Parliament. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Southland man Logan Wallace said his dream became a reality when he was recently named the FMG Young Farmer of the Year. After 2 days of intense physical and mental competition, the 28-year-old Waipahi sheep farmer came out on top. Sharon Rees reports.
The FMG Young Farmer of the Year contest tested every ounce of physical and mental ability for these young farmers. And when it was all done and dusted, it was Southland man Logan Wallace who came out on top. The 28-year-old sheep farmer, who was back working on his Waipahi farm today, said last week it had been his dream to take out the competition.
Oh, it'd be absolutely amazing to become the 50th grand finalist, as there's such a history of success from the grand finalists, and just to stand up and be recognised as one of them, and the opportunities it would open up to actually really promote agriculture.
He said he had the advantage of the competition being held in Southland, as the whole region had backed him to succeed.
There's a real big push and backing from the Southland region, and so many are behind me. From the young farmers side, it's really hard because so many are involved, so you can't talk to them. But the rest of it's absolutely great. Everyone goes out of their way to help you and do anything they could. Everyone gets in behind people and really throws their support at them, which is really cool, and that's one of the cool things about living down south.
Christchurch-based farmer Cameron Black took out second place of the competition, with third place going to Waikato dairy farmer Josh Cousins. Wallace said he will now use his title as the Young Farmer of the Year to promote the industry and to encourage the next generation of farmers to succeed. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
An infamous South Dunedin watering hole is to close its doors for the last time. The Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority has cancelled the bar manager's licence, forcing the well-known pub to close.
Time, gentlemen, please. Last orders have been called on Heff's Hotel by the Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority, and manager Stephen Clark has lost his licence, and he's not happy.
Oh, I only found out on Monday. I'm really pissed off about it. It's just, I think it's unfair. We have no trouble. We've got a great bunch of people who drink here.
The bar is a popular watering hole for South Dunedin's working class. It had its liquor licence suspended in 2012 and 2017, but Clark says it's not fair to bring up the past.
I mean, we've been punished. We've been closed down twice before for little wee things. But I mean, now we're going to, and I've always been punished for those times. I mean, every time I've been closed down before, I've lost revenue, I've lost poker machine revenue, I've lost bar take, I've still got to pay the rent. But now, on this final one, I'm actually getting punished again for, I would have been punished before, but now they're bringing me old ones up again, and I'm getting re-punished for what I've been punished for.
Earlier this year, the bar was inspected following an anonymous tip-off, with police saying they found patrons to be rowdy and argumentative. Although he's taking this personally, Clark says other publicans have been sympathetic.
And I've had a lot of publicans ring me up too, actually, and they said, look, we've had a lot of trouble too, but they haven't been speaking out for the simple reason being they're scared of retaliation. And there's a lot of publicans who rang me, just, you know, they said, look, we know how you're feeling, but we're not speaking out.
Stephen Clark's manager's licence has been cancelled with immediate effect, and Hef's last day is July the 31st. Clark is unsure what he'll do next. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Minister for Small Business Stuart Nash says provincial visas will help Southland businesses. And Dunedin's International Science Festival was in full swing just in time for the school holidays. Welcome back. Small Business Minister Stuart Nash says introducing provincial visas to New Zealand will help Southland businesses to retain skilled workers. Nash was in Invercargill this week to talk with small business owners about how the government plans to tackle employment issues in the region.
Minister for Small Business Stuart Nash spoke in Invercargill today about government plans to help Southland business owners. A Q&A session with around 40 small business owners highlighted the region's need for more skilled workers, and Nash says plans are in the pipeline to tackle the issue.
Southland's going great guns. I mean, you have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, but that brings its own set of challenges. And our government has made it very clear we want to drive productivity, we want to work with the sector, we want to understand where the pain points are in order to come up with policies and programs that will help people overcome a lot of the issues and the challenges they face.
He says limiting immigration to places like Auckland would ease constraints on infrastructure, while introducing a provincial visa would combat skill shortages in Southland.
What we want to be able to do is to give out literally provincial visas, which will allow someone to come into a place like Invercargill and work here without them being here for 3 months and then hightailing off to Auckland. And the sort of people that the business owners here were talking about are the sort of people who bring in skills that add significant value not only to the businesses they work for, but to your local community and your regional economy generally.
He says there's a push to visit rural and provincial communities throughout the country to get a first-hand idea of the issues faced by business owners outside of the big cities. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
Chinese culture has been on show at Queenstown's St Joseph's School recently, thanks to a group of visiting students. Some of the students performed special cultural dances, while St Joseph's pupils responded with traditional waiata and songs performed by the school choir. There were also speeches from Mayoress Karen Boltz and members of the Chinese delegation. The event was organised by the New Zealand Hubei Culture Trade Economy Association. The performances were followed by a shared morning tea and school tour. Dunedin's International Science Festival is in full swing just in time for the school holidays. A collection of local youngsters got shown an explosive time thanks to a visiting space expert.
Up, up and away. The principal mission systems engineer at Airbus in the UK, Sian Cleaver, is in Dunedin as part of the International Science Festival and spent much of the morning inspiring young minds. Cleaver says she's very impressed with these bottle rockets.
To say the bottle rockets I've seen here today are amazing. They've gone higher than I think I've ever seen. So these kids are incredible. They're all going to be future space engineers, I think.
She says what the kids are doing is actually rocket science, albeit at its most basic. And Cleaver is passionate about spreading the joy of science.
because we have a real shortage of female engineers, certainly in the UK, and I imagine the same is true over here in New Zealand. And it's really sort of, we're missing out on a whole load of untapped talent there if we're excluding the girls. So my mission really is to try and inspire them and, you know, make it known to them that careers in STEM are just as accessible to them as anyone else, and they can do just as well, if not better, than all the boys.
She says her pathway into science began very early in life and hasn't come back down to earth yet. And it wasn't until she entered the workforce that she noticed she was in a minority, one she hopes to correct.
About the age of about 4 or 5, I announced to my parents that I wanted to be an astronaut. We're not quite sure where I got that idea from, but nevertheless, that was what I decided I wanted to be. And my parents always kind of encouraged me, or at least they never discouraged me. When I was interested in astronomy, they got me a little toy telescope, and then I carried that on throughout my whole of my school education, really. It was only much later on, I think, when I entered the workforce that I started to see that I was working in a male-dominated industry. But again, it's never really bothered me. If anything, I think it's kind of worked in my favour in some instances because people always remember you.
Sian Cleaver is due to make a couple of more appearances at the Science Festival. Her talk on space, To Infinity and Beyond, is sold out. But there are still spaces available for a Pizza plus Q&A event. Science Festival organisers say many of this year's events are nearly fully subscribed. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, fans of Model Railway let off steam in Ashburton, and the serious crash unit is investigating after a man was left critically injured after being run over in Queenstown. Welcome back. Fans of model railways were in for a treat in Ashburton over the weekend with the annual Trains on the Plains show. The event was held in the Tynwald Memorial Hall and featured numerous working layouts to entertain the spectators.
Model trains of all shapes and sizes were on display at Ashburton's annual show at the Tynwald Memorial Hall over the weekend. The two-day event provides an opportunity for people to exhibit their collections as well as traders to buy and sell model railway paraphernalia. Co-organiser Lorraine Oakley says the event attracts people from all around the South Island.
This year we've got about 13 layouts, all sorts of gauges, and people come from all over the South Island with their layouts. It's a great social event. We go out for a meal this evening as well, socially, and do the Sunday. So by the end of Sunday, hopefully the traders have had good sales, and yeah, we've had plenty of people through the door.
Graham Reid travelled down from Christchurch with just 13 from his collection of 80 Lego-based train sets, showing the public what was possible with Lego.
I love bringing down to Ashburton and showing people what you can do and how it all fits together and what a display you can make.
The exhibition left several hundred model train enthusiasts well entertained over the 2 days. In Ashburton, for the South Today.
And finally, an Australian man who was run over after lying down on the middle of a Queenstown road has been left with critical injuries. The 27-year-old was hit by a car in Lake Street at about 1 a.m. after the driver failed to spot him on the road. The man, who was lying down near the intersection with Man Street, was initially taken to Lakes District Hospital to be treated. He was later taken to Invercargill Hospital by air ambulance before being flown to Dunedin Hospital. The tourist suffered internal bleeding and is currently in a stable condition. The serious crash unit is reviewing the scene of the accident. Police are looking for anyone who was in the area at that time of night. And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Get online and check us out on Facebook, or keep up with Southern News via our website, channel39.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.